Question. I had not previously considered the many benefits of mixed age group play, which is outlined in your book, our book, on page 157, apparently. There must be a similar benefit to mixed age or grade schooling. What subjects do you think would be better learned in this environment? So before, this is a topic on which we could talk for months, years, decades. But I will say, to start us off here, and we're not going to spend too long at it, that school, as we also talk about in the school chapter of A Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, is not only a uniquely human phenomenon, but a very new and modern phenomenon. And the vast majority of the learning that happens for humans is not in a school environment. School is a place that learning can happen, and there are some things that are probably best learned in a school environment, but most things that you would want to learn, that is not true for. And so not only is that true, but the modern instantiation of school, where you are segregated by age, is also particularly new. And just because population density allows for you to accumulate, 20 to 30, 20 to 40 kids of the same age in classrooms throughout a city, makes it possible, but that doesn't mean it's better. And so, the true trope, like of the one-room schoolhouse, such as my father actually was raised in Iowa, or went to school in Iowa in the 40s and early 50s, was, of course, more provincial. There were fewer opportunities. There wasn't as much stuff. There weren't as many resources. But what you get is older kids can learn how to teach. And by learning how to teach, you learn what you actually do and do not know. And younger kids can aspire to be able to do what the older kids are, as opposed to feeling like, well, this is what I'm doing. This is what people of my age are expected to do. And the fact is that outside of a very few fundamental and mostly very early developmental processes, the ways and the order in which we learn things is not even set, and certainly the timing with which we learn things is not set. So the idea that, and I'm just going to make something up, it's been a long time since our kids were young enough for this to be relevant, like if you're in second grade, it must be time for multiplication. Like, why? Like, maybe you were ready for multiplication when you were 4, and maybe you're not ready for it now because of something that happened developmentally, and it's going to be a couple more years. And instead of feeling like, therefore, you're dumb, actually let it happen when it's relevant. And that's an easier thing to accomplish in a mixed age classroom.
All right, I would add something. I think part of the problem is that for economic reasons, we built classrooms that stratify kids by age and place teachers at the center. And the problem is that this is not how we are built to learn at all. It is economically efficient, but it is not intellectually efficient. And it also creates a danger of some permutation on reversion to the mean, where if you are grouped with kids who are your age, well, what is the range of capacities in kids your age? It's narrower than the range of capacities in kids in general, narrower in both directions. And so a kid who's truly extraordinary doesn't have any models nearby or peers who are capable of, volleying with them because they're in a room that's been stratified for people who are near them in a capacity for the purpose of putting them in range of the teacher.
Near them in age, but not necessarily capacity.
Well, but nearer to them, they will be nearer to them in age because they'll be at the same, let's say that you're a math prodigy, right? And the point is maybe you're one of these kids who could be through, calculus in the 6th grade, but there's nobody around you. You're slowing down because most of the math that's around you is, whatever 6th grade math looks like. So anyway, my point would be probably ideal for the human mind is the equivalent of, it's not going to be a great example, but let's say a tennis club in which you've got the people who are picking up a racket for the first time and you've got the person who's going to go on and play at Wimbledon or something. And the point is, wherever you are, right, as you may be picking up the racket for the first time, but as you're going back to the locker room, you may stop and watch the pro and learn something about tennis that then, as you develop your skills of just basic racket handling, right, you've got on board some motivation from it and some insight about how the game is really played when you're advanced. And in any case, I would say the question we've been asked is what subjects might lend themselves to this. And I guess the question is, I'm not entirely convinced that there are subjects that don't lend themselves to this. That in effect, there is no harm that I see.
Well, there are some things where you'd want to put a minimum age limit on. If you're doing shop, if you're doing experiments, science experiments with caustic chemicals, something like this.
But right? even that. I'm not saying that we should organize the world this way because there are downsides, but from the point of view of how do we get people to do machine shop work that's really creative and high quality, right? I'm not sure that the people who are just starting out getting to peer in the window of the masters of the craft, the journeyman, is bad. I'm almost sure it's good.
I'm saying that there are ages below which you don't want kids exposed to power tools.
No.
That's all. I don't think kindergartners should be in shop with a table saw that doesn't have a saw stop on it or something.
I mean, I think that's
it's a really obvious point. I know you don't disagree with this. It doesn't require any.
Well, but the thing
discussion.
is, in order to be good at shop, you should be doing something in kindergarten.
Of course.
And so I guess what I would say is it's impractical to have the journeyman near the kindergarten, but it's also true that in most cultures, kids have lots more access to things that are actually dangerous. It's the hyper novelty of the weird world, of the 21st century weird world, that puts you at risk of actually killing yourself, rather than experimenting and being like, oh, okay, the 3-year-olds are walking around in the dirt and stumbling near the fire and playing with knives, and that's okay because that's how you learn. That's awesome, but not once you add, wall power and and power tools. No, I'm not arguing that, but I am arguing. I'm sure there is a benefit to exposing those kids to what happens at the top level of the discipline, not letting them be hands-on with it, but letting them see how it is done, letting them talk to people who do it so that they can understand how a mind that does this well thinks about these things, so that as they're learning the basics, they've got their eye on the right thing, right? Just as you might, as you're picking up skiing, watch the masters on television do it and think, oh, what is that?
But watching people at a much higher level is different from being in the same classroom with them. So your answer here is you think there's basically nothing that wouldn't be better learned in this environment, and maybe we should stop there. There's a lot more to say here, but
let's put it this way: I remain to be convinced that there is a category where there isn't at least some substantial benefit from seeing people who've mastered something from the very beginnings of your interacting with it.
I think certainly like foreign languages, absolutely. There's a way in which especially modern science is taught, and we used to run into this a lot when we were professors, where it is expected, is understood, is received wisdom that in order to end up taking, say, molecular biology, genetics, or neuro, you need to have taken the introductory series first, because it's absolutely necessary. Like, I didn't do that because I happened to walk through literature and then anthropology. I was like, oh, I want to do bio. I don't have time for that. I'm going to start with neuro. Like, that's, oh, cool. Okay. Yep. If you're driven and you have some capacity, you can do this. And frankly, you're more likely to get caught in one of the flaming hoops they erect for you if you have to go through all of the basically weed out courses and not have the really exciting, beyond competent professors in the more in the different courses. But it is true that for certain things within science and math, there is a linearity. There is actually, you already need to know this if you're going to do this. And so, as will always be the case if you're trying to sort of throw everyone in this case, into a pot and say, okay, let's see how you can all learn from one another and also have the authority teaching you things that they think you need to know. There will be glitches because there will be things that the younger people don't know, and some of the older people also, but all of the younger people won't know some things, so they just haven't had enough time on the planet yet to have been exposed to them. So there will be problems with that in the more explicitly, sometimes linear fields like maths and sciences, unlike places like history and art and philosophy. And philosophy is maybe an edge case, but
yeah, I think that's right, and I think you're right. Probably math, your ability to glean what the experts are doing is probably pretty darn minimal.
Yeah.
And so the value of exposing you to it early is probably lower, maybe close to zero. You know, the real edge of the discipline versus you're just getting your feet wet with your number line. It's not, you know, that's potentially not so valuable, but as a general matter, you should see the full range of what's possible at every stage, and that, you know, it may not be practical, but useful where it can be applied.